It is April 19th. It is day 90 of the Trump presidency. We finally made it through 90 days. Barely. Just barely. And ironically, in the sort of middle of the night, I think one of the most important things that has ever happened, happened. So the Supreme Court last night at like 1:30 or 2 a.m., depending on where you're located, but EST, delivered a ruling that the Trump administration cannot deport their current plane load of migrants that they were planning to send to El Salvador over there because they have not been given due process. Some of them didn't even understand what was being said to them. They didn't speak English, and the explanations were being given to them in English. Some of them were not told that there was an option to try to contest what was happening. And so the ACLU went in and started a lawsuit against the process of what's happening here. And the Supreme Court is saying, stop what you're doing, allow due process to occur. It is a little bit of a nail biter, honestly, for me, because I really feel like a lot of things could go either way right now. I think that is harder to deal with for me personally than just knowing bad things are going to happen, right? This has the potential to, if I'm being honest, it has the potential to start a revolution. If the Trump administration ignores the Supreme Court, you guys, I don't know what happens after that. Something really crazy. It's scary. It's scary. It's a crazy time to be an American in the United States. There's actually a group of libertarians in Texas that have begun trying to file to impeach Trump. And those are the libertarians. Because, here's the thing. Libertarians supposedly really believe in freedom and freedom of speech, and just freedom in general. And what this administration is doing is really encroaching on our rights, on the Constitution. They're just stomping all over the Constitution. So people who actually believe in things like due process and freedom to assemble are horrified by the stuff that's coming out of this administration. And, it's just a crazy time. And it could, theoretically, I'm not saying that this will happen, but it could scare the Trump administration back into their shell if they get enough pushback. Or they could, pretend like it's not a thing. They could just continue. And again, we'll know in just a few days, are they going to try to send that plane load of people anyways, even though the Supreme Court just told them not to? And then if that happens, it gives me the chills kind of, because it's a really big deal. A really, really, really big deal. And more to come, right? Today is a little bit short, which I'm actually happy about. But that headline in and of itself is something that you will hear the podcast people talking about this nonstop. People will be analyzing this probably for years to come, honestly. And whatever happens after this is going to determine America's fate in many ways. Because also, if the Trump administration does adhere to the rule of law and listen to the courts, then it tells you that there's at least a little bit of a barrier between us and full-blown authoritarianism. They at least have to go through. The Supreme Court obviously leans heavily conservative right now, don't get me wrong. But there is still a difference between conservatives and what's happening right now does not feel conservative to me. It's something else, right? It's not this is Republican. This is not Republican. This is its own thing. So Putin has also called for a truce because it's Easter weekend, and is saying that he will not, release any military attacks this weekend. But Ukraine says basically they don't believe him, so that they will, essentially watch to see what happens. And, they're going to reciprocate if Russia is lying, basically. Meaning, if Russia attacks them, they're not going to, obviously, nor should they, honor a truce that Putin just randomly called out of nowhere. Again, just as a reminder from yesterday, the United States is saying that they are stepping out of any kind of mediation in this situation in a few days. If Russia and Ukraine cannot find a true permanent ceasefire, which seems really unlikely, the United States is bowing out. Honestly, that sounds like something that Russia really wants. And I think it really benefits Russia, right, if United States is completely out of the picture. And I'm sure, honestly, I'm sure that what is happening has been requested by Russia, if we're being honest. So Trump posted this idiotic photo. It's so obvious. It literally looks like I went in and typed the numbers on of Mr. Garcia's knuckles, and it looks like somebody wrote MS-13. Go look it up. It's so obviously photoshopped. It's not even they didn't do a good Photoshop job. I have a little funny story about this. I know, how could I possibly have a funny story about this? I have this issue where when Trump does something that really makes me angry, it makes me think of the people that were most recently in my life that turned out to be Trump supporters, one of whom was someone that I dated for, I don't know, maybe roughly 6 months. And he had originally told me he's a liberal, and he lied to me. Later on confessed, just before we stopped seeing each other, that he was, in fact, a Trump supporter. He did say, I won't vote for him if you need me to not vote for him, but it's all lies. It's nonsense. Anyways, long story short, every time I get really angry about something that Trump does, I find myself having these imaginary fights with people that I used to care about, that I found out were Trump supporters, that I don't talk to anymore. And so I took a picture of this guy. I wasn't going to do it. I didn't do it. And by do it, I didn't text it. I didn't text this to him. I went to ChatGPT and I took this guy's picture, and I asked ChatGPT to add an MS-13 tattoo to his forehead. And ChatGPT said no. It said, no, we can't add gang-related material to people or whatever. So that was a long way of telling you that I'm pretty sure that the Photoshop job is so bad because ChatGPT won't do it for them. So then I actually did take the time to go into my own photo app and add an MS-13 tattoo to this guy's head. And I really had to restrain myself from sending it to him and telling him that I was going to send it to ICE as proof and have a nice time in El Salvador. I didn't do it, but that's the mood I'm in today, if that tells you anything. Anyway, so it was a very bad Photoshop job. You would think with Elon on his team, they would have some sort of better way of doing that, but I guess not. The sad thing, though, is that Trump supporters are going to look at that and they are going to fall for it, which is it's so obvious. But they're, I don't have to say it. They're not the sharpest tools in the shed. Ugh. There have been thousands and thousands of people protesting all across the United States right now. It's not, there are articles about it, but it's not being heavily covered. There's protests probably in every major city of the U.S. And I've heard that it did make its way overseas as well, although some places overseas are having their own protests. Actually, I'll just jump ahead to that. So there are trans rights protests happening in London right now because the Supreme Court in the UK released a decision that in order to be considered a woman, you have to be born a woman. It's basically anti-trans law, essentially. And I did see some TikTok users from overseas talking about this earlier this week, and I apologize that I didn't report on this. I've been struggling a little bit with like the volume of United States related headlines, and then what to report on overseas. There's just so much happening right now, literally everywhere. Like, it's really hard to keep up with, I'll be honest with you. In any case, so that is going on simultaneous to our anti-Trump protests that are happening here, and also pro-immigrant protests that are happening here. You know, I haven't heard any negative reports as far as like any kind of violence or anything like that. I have not heard anything, which is really good, and fingers crossed we make it through the day with nothing crazy happening. JD Vance just visited the Vatican for Easter with his family, and he did not get to meet the Pope. The Pope has made some comments about Vance in the news in the past. They're not like, he's not a fan. You know, I think that it's really easy to point out that Christ was an immigrant and that the Bible very explicitly says you must help people that are in need. Like, it's not, you know, if you can read it all and you claim to be a Christian, you should be supporting people that have less than you and people that need help, period. It's not complicated. And so, you know, the Vatican has sort of made statements about that, and that they don't see like kindness coming out of this administration, essentially. So the Vatican made some like very odd statements about because the sort of like the second in command, and I don't remember what it's called, did meet with JD, but said that they had a discussion about immigration and some other things. So it doesn't sound like it went really well. Yeah. I mean, again, they're not, the people that are calling themselves Christians in the United States are not Christians. I'm sure there are some left. You know, I would rather be caught dead than call myself a Christian right now because of who these people are. And actually, a fun fact about me, I was not really raised religious whatsoever, but I did in high school become religious on my own without my family. And like sort of loved the kindness and the golden rule portion of the Bible and became very invested in it. Started going to a church that I really cared about. And then actually my church wanted me to become a minister, was going to pay for me to go to seminary school. So I went to a Christian college for one semester and completely freaked out because the bigotry and the abuse and the racism and the just patriarchal, horrendous, I hated these people. They're horrible people. And I turned tail and ran and never looked back. And so there's still a part of me that fiercely supports what I believe to be the truth of who the archetype of Christ was. Like, I see a lot of Christ in Bernie Sanders. But I absolutely am horrified by what the word Christian has come to mean, especially in the United States. And I want nothing to do with it. So I guess that's a very long way of saying I feel like it's almost like the Alice in Wonderland, like Looking Glass scenario. It's like it's like the image is reversed or something, which is interesting because I think I've told you, I've had people come into my comments and tell me everything you're saying is backwards. And it's funny because like we feel the same way, buddy. Like everything you're saying is backwards. Except I have actual reality on my side. I can read the Bible. I know what the Bible says. I've read the Bible through and through, maybe even hundreds of times. I used to get up at like 4:30 in the morning before high school and go do a Bible study for an hour and a half every day. I was pretty intense for a while. Anyways, those people are not Christians. I can tell you that with a lot of clarity. And I would say that to literally Jesus Christ's face, actually. And I think he would say that to their face. So anyways, Oh man, this is crazy. So obviously, you know that there was a shooting, another, I don't know if you can call it a mass shooting, but, 2 people killed, 6 people injured, still hospitalized in Florida this week at Florida State University. Phoenix Ilkner is the name of the young man who did that. His grandmother came out and made a statement to the news and said that his parents are bigots and racists and that this is their fault. I mean, they're Trump supporters. He became a Trump supporter. He became very invested in like right-wing podcasts and like Charlie Kirk, and then this happened. And it is an epidemic. And it is pretty much, I don't know what the data is, but it's like basically all young white men that have really serious rage problems. And it keeps happening over and over again. And it's scary. It's scary to think that this is the world that we live in. And, I think I'll just remind you again that Trump made a statement saying that it's sad, but he won't do anything about it. I mean, here's one thing. I appreciate that he just directly says that instead of some like flowery, stupid language that is, promises something that's never going to happen. It's better just, yeah, cool. At least you're being honest and saying like, you're never going to do anything about this. Not that I would ever expect this administration to do something about that. I would not put it past them to take away people's gun rights if there was a real uprising in this country. I'm sure that they would immediately do that. But in the meantime, for now, they won't because they need their base. So this is our last story for tonight. Again, short episode, but the Supreme Court is going to hear a case Tuesday about LGBT children's books. It started in classrooms in Montgomery, Maryland. The classrooms there use they're great stories, it sounds like, written about things like, I guess a knight and a prince that fell in love. They're children's books. It's for young kids. There's one that's about someone's uncle getting married and them worrying that he won't have time for them, and he's marrying a man. It's almost just like inconsequential that just happens to be marrying a man. The story isn't even centered on that. There's just some random little children, and it's not like, obviously not every book they're reading is about this, right? They're just a spattering of books that they have at the schools that it reflects the reality of the world we live in now. In any case, some of the parents who are religious are requesting that their children be excluded from those classes, and the schools have said no, and the lower court systems have said no. So now it's heading to the Supreme Court, and we will find out more. And all of these types of cases are setting precedent, right? Again, that's why I'm like a little bit shaking in my boots about what's going to happen here with the Supreme Court and Trump, because that is also setting precedent. Yes, the Supreme Court is absolutely pushing back on this administration. And of course, the Republicans are hysterical about it, including Trump. However, what the Trump administration does in response is also, in a way, setting its own form of precedent to say that if they listen, if they comply with the Supreme Court this time, then maybe they will continue to comply, right? Hopefully, okay? If they don't, then you can expect that they will just continue to trample over what once was the Constitution and the laws in this country until someone actually goes in and impeaches him and removes him from office. Honestly, I just have this weird feeling that that's not going to happen and that he's going to die before that happens. Could be wrong. We'll see. I don't foresee him facing consequences, not in the way that people hope he will. In any case, I hope that you guys are having a relaxing Easter weekend to the best of your abilities, whether you celebrate or not. Honestly, I don't celebrate. I mean, I'll do something for my daughter, obviously, and she's got other family stuff to go to, which is good. However, I'm not really in a celebratory mood, if you know what I'm saying. I'm going to just be doing some psychotic spring cleaning, I think. That sounds therapeutic to me for tomorrow. So hope you guys are all well and love you. Have a good night.